John brought up a feeling of calm that something should evoke, so I think I'll just invite that feeling into the room here, and just thanks so much for everybody just being together at this event, sharing so much. Can you hear me okay? All right, so I put up this slide because a lot of what I do involves immersive storytelling, but it doesn't really mean anything until you give it a box or a frame, something to deliver to somebody else where they can jump in. So with that storytelling and design in mind, the other word is mindfulness, that ability to be present. So today we're going to jump into that idea, and also I'm going to invite you to go on a journey where you think about yourself as both a storyteller and a story consumer. So Walt Whitman said, "I contain multitudes." If we think about that multiplicity of identities, I want to invite you just to think about the many labels, maybe some of them invited and some of them not invited, that might be placed upon you and how you experience life in that multiplicity. That gives you the power to be a storyteller in many different ways. And I think sometimes there's that danger of a single story. We might feel like we're diminished. I see AR and VR as having wonderful avenues for liberating and giving people that creative freedom to really see that multiplicity and have it be evidenced in experience. So thinking about that, VR and AR are definitely feelings that we get. It's not a storytelling aspect where I have to intellectualize it as much as feeling it. Like Nathan had said earlier, this visceral feeling that we get, which is more in the gut. So what does that actually mean? I had to step back as a storyteller myself and think about, why is it so transformative for me to have an experience in VR and AR that feels totally different from the quote-unquote real world? And I think it's because, in part, I step into an environment and my senses are hit. Immediately, I'm feeling something. It's a tool for empathy, but it's a tool because we can just let go and ride the ride and have this human experience. It's not something new to have a visceral reaction to art, but suddenly as designers and creators, we have all of these intentions that are underneath our design that are really important to consider and think about as we build AR and VR experiences. So it's my philosophy that underneath everything is that empathy, that in-feeling that actually gives us the capacity to create and to connect. So if we're connecting, then just thinking back to these wheels of emotion, for me, love is a driving force, but really thinking about this is an emotion wheel that you can look up. Robert Plutchik created it and has this sort of out-in emotion, whether it's the strong emotions in the center of the wheel or some of the more diluted emotions on the outside, but it's underneath. We're actually an experience of a story is something where we're really viscerally feeling these emotions, even if we don't give them labels right away. We can step back afterwards and say, what was that meaning? How did that affect me in the middle of the story? So if I'm thinking about storytelling, again, back to each of us as a storyteller. We each have a story to tell. A mentor of mine once said that storytelling is actually important to humans in a very primal way, as deep as survival. We need them, we seek them, we're hungry for them, and when they're missing, we feel it. So our job as designers is to create a story that has that emotional resonance. And then we question, well, what's authentic? If it's not authentic to us as the storyteller, then the audience will feel it. So we really have to engage and jump into that. And looking at VR and AR in specificity, really they give us this opportunity to be present, but it's in a new form, new rules. I would argue it's not even a medium. It's something deeper that's an experience. I love nature. And I have to remind myself that I am nature. I'm not in nature. So that's that idea in VR. What does it mean to actually be inside of it? These are my sketch notes. I'm not going to go through every point. But when I have to think about what my job is as a designer and as a writer and a creator, I'm thinking about all of these avenues and all of these facets that are underneath the design. And then the great design, like we heard this morning, is transparent. You don't have to think about it. You recognize it. But it's something that's hidden in the art of a good story. So today, just the points that I wanted to make are that the world building that's inherent in game design can also support our tools as we create in VR and AR. Usually the characters would be driven by the environments that we put them in, because it's a real sensory experience in VR and AR. And the third point is something I'm really interested in working on. So if you are too, please seek me out, have that deeper conversation. What are the tools for capturing reflection? Maybe live time when we're in the experience as a creator. What are the tools as new forms of writing that we could use when we're creating VR and AR stories? And also as a user, what's the way to capture a user reflection in the experience? Because I think sometimes if we're inside the headset, we're so deeply in it that then afterwards coming back to the real world can be jarring, and there's not necessarily a great tool right now for that capture of experience. So designing that is part of my challenge. And just to remind, usually in that environment, if it's 360, if it's something we're building, it's not a frame-to-frame like traditional storytelling, it's world-to-world building, inside out. And thinking about all the stimuli that we can put in, but not to just lead a user by the nose, but really to have an immersive design of experience that's based on some of those classical elements that made great stories resonant for us. So the third step of the design in mind really is a form fits function. You know, for the user experience, what is it going to be? And are we emotionally connected to that from the beginning? I'm thinking again about mindfulness, mindfulness as awareness. Awareness of the inside and also awareness of the outside. So it really is a connected experience. And I think that takes intention, but as soon as I start doing it, I actually feel as if I'm having an experience that involves levity. And I think that's why a lot of us chose AR and VR as our passions in the first place. So just to have that insight, to infuse it into the creative possibilities that you're building in VR and AR, and again, to keep the joy. Again, this question that we have in front of us, I think, can drive our conversations. In the midst of the technology, how are we using it? And this is a great space to do that and to have those connections. I would call it visceralization, not visualization, you know, just to feel something and let that feeling drive the experience and drive your conversation. So again, the three connected, that visceral feeling, then connected to the storytelling, and that connection actually driving the design of what we choose to create and the tools that we access. I just wanted to use my closing seconds to put this quote up there, because I think here we have a certain allegiance and there's a solidarity. So anytime you're questioning why you're doing what you're doing, or anytime you're maybe tempted to compromise, just push forward. I would say there are a lot of reasons to do what we do and not to compromise, you know, to really feel that wildness in your heart and just let it live in the artistic creations that you make that are going to liberate others. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.